Hi, families. I'm going to let everyone in. Okay. I'm going to put everyone in right now. Okay. I'll take care of it, Bill. All right. Just one moment. It's so good to see you. Everyone, we're so excited to start these webinars and these workshops. We have a good batch, about 20 families. I just want to let all of you know that we're going to start today, just because we're catching up a little bit. We're going to start with webinar one, which is what the parents had requested. So we're just going to update the webinar schedule, but this will be webinar one. We're going to do all the intro work. Just one moment, Bill, I'm letting everyone in. Okay. Hi, families. I'm so happy you're here. I just want to let all of you know, this meeting is being recorded. We're going to begin with webinar one. We're going to do a great intro. And Bill, I'm so honored to introduce you to the families who are listening. Bill, thank you so much for being a resource. Bill served as president of the PTA at Townsend Harris High School. I'm really excited to share that Bill is also an incredible resource for college guidance, financial aid advice, scholarships, competitive college applications. Bill serves as a Michigan recruiter. So we actually have a family visiting the University of Michigan right now, Tanya Pagan, and her child got into MIT with your help and with your hands. Bill, thank you for all of your hard work and your effort. Families, we're going to begin with webinar one today. We're going to provide all the overview of the college admissions process, and then we're going to move into the FAFSA webinar next week. So we'll be one shift. With that being said, we're excited to have a great webinar. You can ask any questions you have in the chat. And Bill, please take it from here. Thank you so much. It is an honor to have you as always. And everyone, here's to a great 15, 16 weeks of webinars. Here we go.
Thank you, Francis. And just also a thank you for how grateful I am, and I'm speaking on behalf of the community, for all that you do. I mean, organizing these webinars, they're very informative, and I'm only too happy to participate. Thank you again. Welcome, families. Let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, so tonight there is a change. Let me just actually skip ahead to this slide. So you probably saw the schedule. I think there were 14 webinars. It's covering soup to nuts, everything about college admissions, college applications, strategies, everything. So it is quite comprehensive. So this is really an excellent opportunity to really get our arms around this crazy process. But there was a shift. We had a 1 week delay, so we're actually starting with the first seminar. I think the webinar, in the email that you probably received, it was this was supposed to be last week, so we're shifting it forward 1 week. So this is the current schedule for the first 6. There are actually 14. So let me actually share this document with you because there is that change. Share this here.
And everyone rest assured, we're going to cover all the webinars and all the topics. We are just going to start with the overview
First 6.
today. And we have a long line of great webinars coming up.
Right. So I just sent this document to everyone. The first 6. There are 14. The rest will follow soon. You'll get an email with that. Many of the slides and the key documents I'm going to save for the end, and I'm going to share it with everybody. Okay. So tonight is a special night because it's the first of 14. I'm honored to be able to present this. And I'm presenting the first 6. So I hope to cover a lot of the key important elements to this process. So tonight is really the introduction to college advice. So it's kind of like an overview. So I'm going to kind of give like a sampler of some of the key elements to this process. So we'll talk about the college list, timelines, resources, and the Common App. and some just sort of some of my insights. I'll sprinkle them throughout the presentation. Some of my insights that I've gathered over the years, um, and I'll share that with you. Also, I was hoping this could be interactive, so I really do encourage and really welcome questions. Sometimes I'm not clear, and your concerns are probably very typical or common. So that would help me, and I'm sure it would help all the others listening. So I want this to be interactive. So please feel free to chat, and if you could even ask the question. So at some point I'll take a break and I'll open it up to anyone who has a question if you want to ask it. Otherwise, you can just type your question in the chat. As Francis mentioned, I'm director of college advice for Kweller Prep. I had a lot of success with a lot of students over the years, and it's a growing business for us, and we've had a lot of success. My expertise is based partly on being an admissions recruiter for actually 22 years for the University of Michigan. So I work with the admissions office there. I've also given private college advice for 10 years. So there's a lot of experience that I bring, and the other college advisors that Kweller uses is also very qualified. So we really do an excellent job. So let me jump to this. So the first thing about the college list. So it is a daunting process. I'm assuming that most of you of folks listening tonight are going through this for the first time, and it's a learning curve for students and parents. It is a very important decision where you go to college, and it's worth the investment of the time because it's if you're new to it, it's daunting. There are 2,000 colleges in the country. And the danger, which is a theme that I bring up, is following the herd, because each high school has a certain narrow list of colleges that have had a lot of history. And if you just follow that, I mean, it probably won't be the worst thing, but it won't be the best thing, because you want to think in a broad sense. Keep an open mind. So that's part of what we're going to be discussing in the very beginning of this presentation, how to go about that. So you want to winnow the down list. Ideally, this is my feeling based on years of experience, that the list should only have ultimately 8 to 12 colleges on it. I know that with the ease of applying, many students do a lot more. And just to show you the value of that, or how credible that is, many high schools actually limit students to either 10 or 12. If I'm not mistaken, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think Hunter does limit students to 8 or 10, at least private colleges, or at least they did. And there's a reason for that. And I'm going to talk about that more as we go through, but basically you want to do the discipline first, because not all colleges will be a fit. And a big part of the admissions process is fit. It's not, oh, why did student have such and such grades or such and such scores get in and I didn't? Because it's largely about fit. So if you do your homework and you find the right fit, success will follow. So that's a large part of my philosophy, is finding the right fit. But in order to do that, there's a lot to learn in this process. So how do we go about that? How do we climb this learning curve? Well, there are a lot of resources, of course. So one of my favorites is the FIS guide. So that's over here. So the FIS guide is actually one of the few resources that's not online. That's going to be I'm going to give a doc at the end that lists all some of the resources. The FIS guide is mentioned. So that's a hard copy book. It's like $20. It's very well worth it. It really is a wonderful book. It gives about 4 pages on each of about 350 selective colleges. And it's really wonderful. There's a lot of insights in there. YouTube videos are outstanding when they're taken by college students. So college student will give you a day in the life, a dormitory tour, and it's like almost like you're there. So those I found those to be very, very useful. There are college search engines, which will be on the next slide. I'll give you, there's a bunch of them, and I'll list some of them. And social media, Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, there's a lot of information on colleges there. Visiting the college, of course, is probably the best way of learning about a school. If you're feeling it, you're talking to students, visiting classes, etc. Naviance used so these we'll talk about more in depth. And don't overlook the college websites and college newspapers, because those really give you a feel. Again, each school has a different vibe, has a different personality. So these are ways of finding out about that. Where do I feel most comfortable? It's kind of the idea. So this is just a screenshot from one of many search engines. Searches. These are college search engines. So you put in certain parameters. You can see on the left panel your major, your school type, admissions difficulty, and you can kind of tweak it as you go along, and it'll generate a list. So this is just sort of like the first round, just kind of getting a sense of what's out there. Again, there's 2,000 colleges. If you're not limiting yourself to a certain region in the beginning, I wouldn't. I would keep an open mind. Of course, if you have a limit like 4 hour drive, for example, from like Boston, Washington, upstate New York, you could also limit it in this using the filter. So these are very useful for the first stab at it. Okay, so you can't talk about colleges without talking about the U.S. News rankings. So these rankings are really useful. Colleges spend a lot of time jockeying for position on the lists. They talk about it a lot. When there's a move in a list, it makes like lead stories in on the college newspapers and even the New York Times. So it is very important. It does get a lot of criticism because it gets too much attention. But the way I would look at the list is not literally, and I'm sure most of you have familiar with the U.S. News rankings. It is the gold standard. I mean, it's the only ranking system that's really super valuable. There are other lists, but they pale in comparison to this. It really gets an idea, I would say, in terms of selectivity. So which are the most selective schools? It's not to say that one school is better than another. It's really a measure of like how selective they are and how competitive it is to get in. That's one of the big measures of it, generally speaking. And I wouldn't say, oh, if one school is like 18 and one school is 28 or 35, between like it's not meant to be like taken that literally. But just to let you know, it is somewhat opaque how they actually calculate it exactly, the rankings. But these are some of the factors they use: graduation rates, diversity, of course, your high school grades and scores are factored in, but not as much as people think. The admission rate, etc. So these are all considered. Oh, let me just actually show you this list. This is going to be included. I just want to just have a link to this. Um, Let me show you that. Okay, so this. I'm going to share this with you. It's in the document at the end. I will share this document. But this is I put this together. I rather you can actually go to the website and see it, but it's kind of hard to navigate. So I kind of distilled it, and I also had my own twist on it. So the ones in green are within what I consider driving distance, so within 5 or 6 hour drive. And then you have women's colleges, public universities, etc. So the publics are in this kind of gray purple color, like UCLA is the highest ranked public. So this is very useful. And I'll share that with you. Okay. Let me talk about this. We talked about the vibe, that idea of the vibe. I'm going to show you some slides about that. So these are just 4 colleges. So one of the ways you find the vibe on campus is going to the website. Each website is very distinctive, and they really try to show viewers, the public, students, the feel of the campus by the website. So something as simple as that, and they're rich with information about the academics, the structure, the requirements, the residential life, a lot of the policies. A lot of these guys have blogs, which are really useful. It's a student blog. So they employ, usually it could be 10, 15 students that write blogs about like the daily life. And it's really interesting. When I read it, it really helps inform me about like what's going on and sort of like a typical students, because these students who are hired to do this are told that you want to be revealing. You want to be very open about like life on campus, et cetera. So they're really useful. So spend some time on the websites, on the college websites. Let me just give you an example here, actually. So I went to the University of Rochester, which is upstate. It's a private university. It's about 7,000 undergrads. So I just clicked on that. I just logged into that. I'm not logged in. I'm sorry. I went to the website. And um, so, of course, you go to admissions, you go to the campus life, or you could scroll around. Um, so it gives you some basic stats. Um, It's 275 student clubs, housing. So the main campus is the River campus. So I might click on that link to see what's going on. First year housing. Um, so it says residence halls for first year students. They're all gathered together, which is not uncommon, that the first year students are sort of congregated together. So that's often something that's nice to know. And then talk about like upper class housing and how, uh, which students get housing. Generally speaking, as a rule, private colleges have on-campus housing and dorms, usually for at least 3 years, often four. In public colleges, just to share this with you, for public colleges, usually it's only the first year that you live on campus. Thereafter, you're really encouraged to live in an apartment near campus. So that's one difference between a public and a private. I'm just going to something else here. Um, so I'm just kind of showing you this, like what I would typically do. So admissions, of course, it's going to talk about admissions. A lot of them, by the way, a lot of the websites will actually have tips on applying, how to get in. They'll give sample essays. These are the essays that we found to be the most appealing, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of this. They're very rich with information. So this is just, they're just scrolling down here. So this is part of the learning curve, as I call it. Okay. Okay. So the other big uh, opportunity to learn is YouTube. So these are just, I took a couple of screenshots. Um, so one of my favorites, and this is in the list that I'm going to send you at the end, but Dominique Cynthia, she is magnificent. She has what she calls 73 questions. She has the same 73 questions of one student, and about, I think her list is up to like 70 or 60 different colleges, but they're really magnificent. It really gives you a sense of what the college is like. So this is a highly recommend that. But there are so many resources. So if you just go on YouTube and type in the college that you want, that your favorite college, and it'll come up with a lot of useful information. And these are just other channels, other ways that you can learn. I mean, that some of them get overlooked. I mean, for example, something simple as a college newspaper. What's going on in the college? What are people writing about? What is their style? I mean, they could be very revealing about uh, what's happening and what students are thinking, what the current feeling is. The editorials, the news, whether it be sports or just campus news, they're excellent. I talked about the college websites, social media. I mentioned that. College Confidential is my favorites because they have a lot of forums where you discuss everything under the sun. It's usually divided by college, but about admissions, about dorm life, food, it's all there. And oh, the virtual tour. Let me just actually touch on that because that's very useful. So almost every college has a virtual tour. So if you can't visit the school, The school will visit you. Um, so I'm just scrolling down here. So they have a bunch of stuff. Um, this is the virtual visits. Let's see what the options are. They actually have two. Let me see what's going on here. They have two virtual visit options. You can actually take a tour, but you have to sign up for it. It's online, but you actually have a live synchronous tour guide. The other option is the virtual cab. This is more common. So this is actually, you can do this at any time you want. So you can just click that and it'll take you building by building. So that's kind of handy to have. By the way, as I speak, I might be missing something or not be clear. Please feel free to chat me a question, please. I would actually like to hear your voices, so maybe we could take a break at some point and interact that way. Okay, so let me talk about this. The best way to learn about colleges, I went through a bunch of different opportunities, but there is no substitute from my experience of actually physically visiting the campus. It is really remarkable because what I have found when I've gone myself or with other students, that within like an hour, even a half an hour, you can feel right away, this is the place for me or this is not. So this there's no substitute for this. If you can possibly do it, I mean, especially I'm assuming most parents and students are juniors or sophomores at this point. So there's time. Colleges generally have a different schedule calendar than high schools. They don't basically they don't get any of the holidays off that we get, like President's Day. That's not really like a holiday for them. There's schools those days, so those are days you can go. They get 1 week for spring break, 1 week for in the fall, and of course they get Thanksgiving and they get a winter break, which is usually pretty long, like 4 weeks. But other than that, the school's in session. So you really should go when school's in session, because it's all about like the vibe, right? So let me tell you about when you visit the campus. Sometimes you kind of like you should book in advance, if possible, and they do fill up pretty quickly. But if you book now for the fall, September, October, this is actually a good time to do it because there would be availability. So let me tell you that there's many ways of visiting the school. I'm just going to talk about it briefly because it is very important to me. So generally speaking, when you sign up for the official visit, it's broken into two parts. There's an info session and a college tour led by a student. The info session is what I recommend. That's very important because very typically it's led by an actual admissions officer. So they give you a lot of insights and the information is coming right from the source. So this is really useful. The college tour I'm kind of down on. They do have self-guided tours, and the reason why I don't like the college tour is because it's very canned, and it's like an infomercial because the student leading the tour is giving you a very biased view. Rather than spend the hour on the guided college tour, you should take the self-guided tour, choosing what you want to see. But I would spend that hour or two doing the other things that I listed here. Talking to students, there's no substitute for that. Think about this. Every student on campus was once a prospective freshman. So they all can sympathize with you. So most of them would be happy to talk to you if they're not rushing or late to a class. Wander around campus, you'll get a vibe. Are they receptive? That's the most valuable thing. And they'll love to talk about it from my experience. Sitting in on a class. This is something that a lot of students don't realize that you can do. The way to do that is it's an informal process. When you go to the admissions office and you politely ask, can you sit in on a class? They usually have a list of classes for that day that you can sit in on. So I've done this numerous times with success. And that's the single best thing you can do. I mean, imagine sitting on an actual class and you're seeing students interact. You're eavesdropping. Students are sitting around you. I mean, it is absolutely magnificent. The second best thing to do is try to grab a meal at the dining hall. You see what students are eating, what they're talking about. The food's a big thing. If food is a big thing for you, you'll sample that yourself and make your own judgment. And at the end of that half a day or however long you're on campus, you'll know the answer to this question. Can you see yourself fitting in and being happy there? That's the question. And I say you'll know. So this is why it's so valuable. And also, another thing about college visits in general, you should see colleges that you're not interested in. Because in order to know what you're interested in, you have to know what you don't like. So that's also something that's a good tip. Okay, so we know about the college list. I actually showed you this, and I didn't mention this before, but you may have noticed that there's two lists. So the US News, this gold standard, has two parallel lists. One is the university rankings. These are the well-known brand name schools. So it includes all the Ivies, it includes Vanderbilt, Notre Dame, USC, all the public universities, the flagship publics, Binghamton, University of North Carolina, Florida, et cetera, blah, 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 the famous names. The ones on the right, the liberal arts colleges, are really overlooked. They're smaller, so they all have about 2,000 students. They do not have the publicity, but does that make them not as good? No, they actually are. So this is something I really push because public high school students do not appreciate them and do not tap into this wonderful list of options. Just to give you an example, at the elite private high schools, so I'm talking about like Collegiate High School, Dalton, Horace Mann, these schools typically 50, and these parents are really paying very close attention to colleges. Typically 50% of their graduating class go to liberal arts colleges, whereas the comparable percentage at the top high schools in New York City, it's only 5%. So that tells you something, that they're really being overlooked because people that are really paying attention and been in this game for a long time are sending their children to liberal arts colleges. So this is something that I actually have. One of the presentations will be on that, talking about that. So I'm going to talk more about that. Okay. Now, let me go back here. Any questions? I don't see any questions at chat. So if you have a question, please feel free to ask. I'm going to go to the next slide. So these were the liberal arts colleges. I talked about that just now, just to give you some details here. So there are advantages to them. There's smaller class sizes. So there's more access to research. The research is not as advanced as it in universities, but that actually plays to the undergraduates because the undergraduates would have more access to it that way. And there's more emphasis on teaching. Financial aid is also excellent there. And there's something to be said about a smaller college and just in general. So I'm not saying there's advantages and disadvantages. Of course, there's pros and cons to a smaller college. This slide actually captures what I consider to be the three major buckets of selective colleges in the country. So you have the private liberal arts colleges, which we discussed. These guys here. So the key is there's about 2,000 students. They have a very small student faculty ratio, which is obviously a big plus. And you live on campus, typically all 4 years. The private research universities, that would include the Ivies, University of Rochester, Northwestern, Northeastern, Boston University. The LAFI is less homogeneous. Classes may be larger. The class ratios are bigger. And this is the range of students, of the undergraduate students. And the third category is publics. So when I say publics, I mean the flagship publics. So New York State has what they would say 3 flagships: Binghamton, Stony Brook, and Buffalo. Just to mention ones, Pennsylvania has Pitt, University of Pittsburgh, Pitt, as known as Pitt, and Penn State. And of course, New Jersey has Rutgers, which has 3 campuses, but the main campus is their flagship. So students live on campus only the first year only. The student faculty ratio, not surprisingly, is much larger. So there are disadvantages, advantages to all 3. So I'm not saying one is better than the other, but there's something you should consider all of them. And a typical well-balanced college list, and I have one of the presentations I'm going to present in a few weeks, is dedicated just to that. Talking about the balanced list, what's in it. But very typically, it would include colleges from each of the three categories, very typically. I would say there's just some things to think about when you think about colleges, and everyone has a different value they place on each of these. The size of the school, where it's located, the campus life. Do you want to be in a city? Do you want to be in a suburb? Do you want to be in a rural area? And how's the campus? Some of these are very historic campuses that are really like absolutely beautiful, and some are not as nice. I mean, how much does that mean to you? The only way you'll find out when if you're 17 years old or 16, you're just starting, is visiting. This is a learning curve. You're growing, you're learning, and it's such a big decision. It's so important. So it is worth the time and the effort. And then there's a category that I just want to touch on is the public flagship colleges outside of New York. So there are most states do not have like elite public colleges, but we all know University of Michigan, Cal Berkeley, UCLA, University UVA, University of Virginia, UNC. These are all like fantastic colleges that draw a lot of students from out of state. So typically the elite schools will be like typically 20 to 40%. Like Michigan is like 41% out of state. Maryland is like 30%. Delaware, I think, is the highest, but University of Delaware, which is the highest, I think it has like 60, this is a small state, it's like 65% are out of state. But most schools that are not famous, it's only like 5%, like Binghamton, which is a good school, but it's not elite. It takes, I think, 5% out of state. So we talked about this, about the 8 to 12. That's my recommendation. If you can, that takes discipline to do that. One other comment about that is, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be very hard to find more than 12 colleges where you truly are fit there, where you feel comfortable. So that's one of the thoughts I have about that. So the list itself, I have like 1 or 2 reach colleges, 5 to 8 target colleges, and you only need 1 safety. So everyone's view of this would be different. But if you're having questions about that, that would be based on, roughly speaking, the U.S. News list. Like you'd see like the selectivity. And of course, we do expert college advice, so of course we would help you with that. That would be a big deal. There are many deadlines, and you don't want to miss any, but you want to prepare. So juniors and sophomores and first year students, let me share this document with you. And this is, again, it's going to be on the. I'm going to share this all at the end, so I don't have to go back and forth sharing it. Let me show you this list, this timeline. So this is a timeline that I made up myself. So I had revised it. So I broke this into 3 categories: admissions tests. I think that everyone's got down. The college application process. So it's like the big challenges there. And I have a presentation just on the Common App alone. I am touching on it today, but it's a dedicated presentation because there's a lot to it. Like, how do you fill out the activity section, and how do you deal with the essays and that sort of thing? They do matter a lot. The essays are read very carefully. So it's a way that you can kind of bend the curve a little bit. So there's a strategy there. Financial aid. There's a presentation. I think it's the very next one. So next Thursday at 7, I'm going to talk all about financial aid. There's a lot of surprises for those who are new to this process about financial aid. Most of the news is good. It's actually very generous about financial aid. So I'm going to share this with you. So I just want to show it to you. Then there's Naviance. So the New York City the Department of Education has paid a large fee to Naviance, so that every single student, every high school is a little bit different. I think juniors and seniors always get access to this, and some high schools allow sophomores to get it. What is Naviance? So something like 2/3 of all the high schools in the country subscribe to Naviance. So it's huge. One of the reasons why they do is because there's 2 websites for Naviance. One is just for the guidance office that students don't see, so it's a separate interface. That's how they upload. So Naviance is the main tool that high schools use to send the information to the colleges. They need to send your transcript. They need to send the letters of recommendation. So the teacher would send it to the your guidance counselor, who then would send it on to the colleges through this portal. And every high school has a report. They have to send certain information, and the guidance counselor is required to give a letter of recommendation. That's required from every college. So that all goes through this. But from the student's perspective, the most popular, so it has a lot of useful information, but by far the most popular is this famous scattergrams. Those who have Naviance or juniors, they've probably already seen this. But this is a popular. What it does is the only two dimensions really can measure that are quantitative are the SAT scores and your GPA. So it shows you the history. I think it goes back 10 years for like basically every college. So it gives you, like, for every college, it'll show you something like this with checks of the students that got in, so you can see where they landed in terms of. So it kind of gives you a sense of like where you would fit in, roughly speaking, because we don't know like the whole application. And again, I don't want to overemphasize that scores and grades are just one component. There's a lot more to this, and you can see from the scattergram. Look, it's all over the map. The check marks are all over because the kids are getting in everywhere. But you can see there's a cloud somewhere, so that's like kind of telling you something. Okay, let me talk about the Common App itself. So the Common App is now not 900 colleges now use it. Pretty much every selective college uses it. I think the only exceptions I know of the famous schools would be Georgetown, MIT, University of Wisconsin. There's very few that are not in it. So the SUNYs and do. The CUNYs don't take it, actually. So that's another exception. The SUNYs do. All the SUNYs take it. So the Common App, I don't know, it came out like maybe 30 years ago, 25 years ago. I mean, it makes sense that why should you repeat the information over and over again? So they created this wonderful website that, like all the selective colleges, pretty much all of them take. So what's in it? So what is in it? So there's the activities. You can list up to 10 activities. That's extracurricular activities. So like marching band, robotics, things that you've done. And they give you the opportunity to share information about that. And how to present that it could be very tricky in terms of doing it in a compelling way. Of course, so that's very important to navigate that in the proper way. So the two big ones are the first two bullet points. The personal statement. So you have choice of one of 7 essay prompts. One of which, the 7th one, is talk about anything you want. The chances are, if you just came up with something randomly, it's going to fit into one of those 6. But you can get them to kind of spark your idea. So there's a whole strategy about, and I have another presentation just on that. We're going to talk about the personal statement, but it is very important part of the process. So I hope you tune in for that presentation. And then the supplemental essays, like the YS essay is the most common. So the Common App ties together basically what you do inside the classroom and outside the classroom. So it's a very subjective decision, the admissions. Getting admitted to a college is very subjective. They don't push the numbers into a algorithm. They never do that. Or I shouldn't say never. Very few, none of the private schools I know of do that. It's a very subjective decision. So you want to be likable. So there's a whole way of how do you do that? How do you present yourself? Knowing what admissions officer thinks is helpful. So that's where Kweller Prep would be able to guide you on that. It is a complicated process, and it is worth all the effort. Any questions so far? So I could take a break. Any questions? I'm happy to answer if you have a question. No? Okay, I will continue. Let's actually go through this a little bit here. So let me go to the Common App. So commonapp.org. So the parents actually can create an account. So when you log in, commonapp.org, I just typed it into the URL, and you can create an account. Excuse me. Notice, by the way, the last option is you can do it as a parent. So if you click that, it's pretty easy to do this. It's very, very, very straightforward. I created an account, of course. So I logged in here, and this is what it looks like when you log in. So the first thing you want to do, you can just look around. So the third tab, the Common App tab. So these are the questions that all the colleges are going to take. So obviously it's going to be demographic information about your family, contact, your address, languages spoken at home, your language you're fluent in, geography, some basic information, and testing. There's education, there's testing, activities, etc. So in other words, the activities as an example is every college is going to take that. Every college will want those up maximum of 10 activities and 5 awards/honors. And the writing is the personal statement. So they're all going to take that. Now, as far as the supplemental essays, not all colleges even will require them. Most do. That would go on an individual college basis. So on the fourth tab, you want to identify a college to put it on your list. So for example, we could look at like Swarthmore College. So I add that, and you can see the list there of my colleges at the second tab. So I've listed it here. You can see I already have it populated, different schools. So let's look at University of Rochester, for example. It gives you all the key dates, the deadlines, and the writing requirements, the college questions. These are the supplemental essays. We answer these questions first. Writing supplement. So this is it. This is the University of Rochester question, the 250-word question. So you have to talk about this quote from one of the founders, one of the benefactors, George Eastman, who was a photographer. I think he invented the camera. Kodak is famously headquartered in Rochester. Anyway, so that's typical. Well, I have a presentation on this, so just more like detail about that. So let me see. There's someone asking a question here. So I have a question. Do colleges verify what you put on the list of activities and awards? That's a very good question. The answer to that is generally no. They do have a couple of people working in every admissions office that does spot check, but on a random basis, the answer is no. You're really doing on your honor, on your honor. But you want to be consistent, because if credibility is a huge element to success in the college admissions. So if they suspect it's not accurate, that could really do damage to your chances. But no, they generally don't check. But please ask questions. I like questions. Also makes me know that if it's a good question, it helps me kind of explain things, because there's a lot of gaps. Let me talk about this for a minute. So many of you know about this, ED, EA, and RD. Let me just spend a couple minutes talking about that. So early decision is binding, meaning that if you there's a very it's like a legal, you have to sign actually a legal contract saying that if you're accepted, you must go. You can't get out of it. The guidance counselor has to sign it, and the parent and student all sign the same contract. So it's a very serious legal document. Early decision is generally speaking in the first half of November. Each college will have the deadlines. Even the Common App will show it, but you would create a spreadsheet, which I'll share with you at some point. Not this presentation, but in the future, I have a spreadsheet that I'll share about how do you organize everything. So the thing about ED ED is only for private colleges. Public colleges have EA. That's the difference right there. So that's the second line in this table. So early action is for public colleges and private colleges. There are some exceptions, but by and large, this is true. Again, EA is also typically November. So that's another reason why it's good to get started early because, oh, well, let me share something with you too about public colleges. Generally speaking, the elite public colleges like the University of Michigan, UVA, UNC, there's an advantage to applying early action. So it pays to get ahead. Don't put it off till January. It pays to get ahead. And also, if you're ahead, the early decision does give you an advantage from many of the private colleges. And if that's the college you really want to go to, I mean, we talk about early decision, it's binding, so you really have to love that college. You have to have all your ducks in a row by the end of October. In fact, some of the high schools, private high schools, actually require all students to have their application ready by like the last week of October. They actually require that. I know the public schools don't, but it's a very good deadline, I think, to try to enforce. So regular decision is, of course, not binding. The advantage of regular decision is if when you get into multiple schools, you'll typically find out in typically late March, and then you'll have 5 acceptances, say, or 6 acceptances, and then you have all of April to visit the schools. They have admitted students day in April, and the deadline to choose your college to enroll. The enrollment deadline is always May 1st. That's the universal day to make your decision. So April is sort of like that month where you can shop around among your accepted schools. Any questions about that? Rolling, anything like that? Let me see. Here's some questions. So Marina, when are the essay questions released? Can juniors work on the essays? That's a very good question. So the essays very seldom change. So you can go in right now and look at the essays. So just create the account. By the way, if you create the account, anything you put in there gets carried forward to when each year it's released on August 1st. But you can still start it now, and all the information will get put forward, so you won't lose the information. But you can create an account. I just recommend all students, all juniors, creating an account right now on the Common App. And there are 6 choices. It hasn't really changed much. But one thing that does change year to year is the supplemental. Those do change. So that I wouldn't start yet. Do they all look at activities at high school on the activities for middle school? That's a very good question. The answer is only high school. Anything before 9th grade is considered inadmissible. So no, nothing in middle school should be mentioned at all. That was a good question. I heard that ED might be harder since there's more people who have much better stats. Well, in ED, it depends on the school actually. So if you apply ED or there's a handful of schools have early action that's restrictive. That means you only apply to one. At those very elite, it might not be much of an advantage actually. But for most of the colleges that have ED, it is an advantage because it's guaranteeing they get in. The yield, because they have 100% yield. Obviously, you play ED, you're bound to go. So they like that. They like the demonstrated interest, the idea that you committed to them. So it does give you an advantage. Do they have better stats? Not necessarily, because a lot of people see the ED as like an opportunity to reach higher because they think, whether it's true or not, they have an advantage. So the ED is, I'll take my chance at a school that would be a reach school. So a lot of these students don't have, but I'll give you a breakdown. For a lot of the schools, the ED admission percentage for many schools is like 40%. And for RD, it might be like 15%. So what if you don't have 5 honors awards? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Most students do not. So and by the way, I've worked with so many clients, you would be amazed at what an honor and award would be. So actually, you probably do have it, but you have to think very cleverly. But if you don't, you just put down what you have. But there's a lot of that. Legacy influence, the answer is yes. Most of the colleges do consider legacy. Just to give you some numbers, the Ivies, which is most people, that's like, I'm not saying I'm promoting the Ivies above anything else. But those definitely have the lowest admission percentage rate. But legacies matter there. In fact, the legacy rate runs from 10 to 15%. Though a lot of them would get admitted anyway, so it's hard to say, oh, how much boost do you have? But I would say it has a significant boost. I think legacy percentage, I've heard it's like 40% admission rate as opposed to like 7%. So it does help at those schools, at those schools. Some schools that don't consider legacy, I think MIT and Amherst notably are two that don't. Madeline wrote a question. Am I able to put a citation or honor award for Common App when I was in middle school? No, unfortunately not. You cannot put that in. Andres, how many early actions can we apply out of the 8 to 12? Okay, so early action is unlimited. So I was encouraging you, if you apply to publics like Binghamton, UNC, UVA, Rutgers, there's unlimited. You have unlimited early action, and if you apply you have unlimited, and if you apply ED, I'm sorry, if you apply early decision, you should apply early action to the publics. Of course, if you get an ED, it's binding. So we usually have 10 days to write your schools that you already applied to that you're withdrawing because you got in early decision. So you would have to withdraw your application. And then Marina's asking, is there a point in taking the SAT early? I'm not a big believer in taking it early, personally. It's very personal. You could take a practice test. That's encouraged, but I would not encourage taking it that early. I think the PSAT is October of the junior year. I wouldn't really take it before junior year, honestly, because one thing about the SAT, and we do a lot of stuff with it. And I've actually worked with students in the SAT also, but one thing about the SAT is very important to know that when you're 16, 15, 16, 17, just by age alone, your score goes up. So you get like sort of a false result if you take it when you're a sophomore. So I'm not a big believer in that. I think that's too soon. Okay, ED1 and ED2. So some college, none of the Ivies do, but some colleges have 2 rounds of ED. So the first round is always in early November, and the second ED round is in the first half of January. So you have 2 rounds to try ED, and they have the same rules. It's binding. So that's the difference. Thank you. Let me just continue here. Okay, so this is the document. We're actually wrapping up. This is a document I'm going to share with you right now. So this is all the documents, basically all the useful things, I think, pretty much are here that I showed you. So let me put that in the chat. So check your chat right now. And this is the docs shown today. So check that out. And let me take more questions too. So we have a few minutes. This is the new, I showed this at the beginning. But this is a new revised list because we got a 1 week delayed start. So the titles are a little bit different. But it's basically the same content. I just wanted to like word in a way that makes it a little bit more relative to what I'm going to present. So I'm presenting these 6, and after this there are 8 more. So it's really a wonderful series. And bless Frances, she really is doing this. Is amazing, and they're really good content. So I was hoping this is useful. So next week, just to give you a teaser, next Thursday, they're all at Thursday at 7. All these guys. So next week, I've done so much financial aid, and I have like all kinds of insights into it. How it affect everything from like how it affects admissions, which is an interesting insight, to the way it works, how it's granted, merit aid, need-based aid, need-blind admissions. There's so many different parts to this. It's going to be very useful. And the good news is it's basically very generous. College aid, financial aid is very generous. So they really make it work. It's really remarkable that schools pay what you really need to advance your life. So that's one of the great things about college. It really is a remarkable opportunity for so many ways. I don't take it for granted. The other ones, the Common App, we're going to talk about because we touched on a lot of things. But the third webinar, the third webinar, I'm going to really talk about the essays a lot. So on this guy here, I'm going to focus on the essays, and I'm going to talk about how to fill out the activities. I'm going to give some insights and tips on that. But the essays are really important. They really are. They really get read very carefully, and it really has an impact. It's about this likability, because I was saying it's a very subjective decision. So you want to win over the heart of the admissions reader, the admissions officer. So we can talk about that. This is important. And I talk about just dedicated just to the publics, because so many students, because this is New York State system, and it's perceived to be cheaper. Though I will say, generally speaking, that's a common misconception. Is actually not necessarily cheaper because of financial aid. So we'll talk about that. And then more detail about the college lists. So I touched on it today, but of course there's a lot more details. And then more details here about the essay. So the essay is going to come on in multiple times in this series, because it is so important. So that's what's ahead. You guys got that list of all the docs. Oh, did I give this? I gave this at the beginning. I'll give it again. So let me give that again. Let me just jump here before I forget. So there was a link here on the second page that I have for you. This is the first 6. Again, there were 14. So this is the first 6. So this is the first 6 presentations from Kweller. 14 total. Really good stuff here. And let me just get to this. So you, of course, free to contact us with any questions. We'd love to hear from you. That's my email address there. Kweller Prep is easy. It's kwellerprep.com. Let me see if there's any question here. And any other questions? Can you please send any professional interest test to figure out best? Yeah, there is something. Oh, by the way, Naviance has something, believe it or not. Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, but want to just answer that question?
And Bill, yeah, I just want to say thank you to everyone for listening and for being part of the webinar. And we're going to have more webinars every week. So every Thursday, let's just say thank you to Bill. Okay, so thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Okay, thank you. Bill, we're all set.
Okay. Yeah,
I
this
just
wraps
want to
up.
say
Yeah,
thank
it
you.
was terrific. Yeah, this was a really good audience, a really good crowd here, and spread the word. I just get satisfaction help. And again, my background, just to say what was said earlier, was I was
Этого
PTA.
Беннета поставишь на
I was PTA
payroll,
president,
на вот эту в программу. Ты его
and
ставишь, да? Что он у тебя там будет?
and I did that because I really wanted to share this information that I had with parents, that this is college advice, because it's very daunting. You've never done it before. I really sympathize with that, so I shared information. So I like doing this. So please spread the word.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much, Bill. Here's to a wonderful next week. All right.
Yeah,
Take
see you
care,
guys next
everybody.
week. Right. See you next
That's
week.
it. Every Thursday. Thank you, everyone. Please let your friends know. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Bye. Thank you, Bill. Here's to a great webinar next week.